What can almost immediately eliminate you that most people don't know of? Story 1. Smoke inhalation in a house fire can eliminate you in as little as 2 minutes. It is extremely important that you get as low as possible when evacuating your home to minimize your exposure. Most people know that smoke is dangerous, but they don't realize that you can die from inhaling it in such a short period of time. Answer. I'd like to add to this something that most people don't realize. In a real house fire, smoke isn't just smoke. It's a mixture of superheated gases. Inhaling smoke in a house fire isn't just uncomfortable, like when the wind changes while you're sitting around a campfire. It will literally burn your airway, causing it to swell shut. If you stand up and take one breath in an area where the thermal layer has banked down low enough, you're done. Make sure you have working smoke alarms, and if you have to evacuate during a fire, stay low. Story 2. Yeah. Carbon monoxide is a big one. It's scary because you can't see or smell it. A faulty furnace or water heater can fill your house with it while you're sleeping, and you just never wake up. Always good to have a working CO detector. Answer. This is going to sound insane because it is, but when my oldest child was 1 year old, I had to call the fire department because I thought our furnace was leaking. Every time the heater would come on, my eyes would start watering and burning. At first, the landlord said it was just dust burning off, but after 3 days, it was still happening, always whenever the heater came on. So I got tired of calling the landlord and reached out to the local fire department to come out and test. And sure enough, we had carbon monoxide throughout our little 2-bedroom apartment. They forced the landlord to repair it before they shut them down. My son's bedroom vent was right about his crib, so I'm always extremely thankful that my body knew something was wrong. Story 3. Not that it will immediately eliminate you, but I learned about people stranded in snowstorms, let's say on the highway, who don't know you need to keep snow clear of your tailpipe or it will start filling the car with carbon monoxide. I randomly learned about it reading a novel and had no idea. And now every few years I read about a passing because of it. Answer. Hijacking this to give advice for getting stuck in snowstorms. First, do not run your car for a long time if you're stuck in the snow. Not just because you can die from carbon monoxide, but also because you need to conserve gas. Instead, run your car for an hour at a time at most to heat up the interior, charge your phone, and listen to the radio to get updates. Second, keep trying your cell phone. Call 911 over and over again, even if you don't have service. Your phone will connect to other towers if they're available. If it's a 911 call, keep calling. There's a chance your call will go through. When your car isn't running, get out and clear snow away from the air intake, usually the front grill area, and the exhaust. Make sure there's a clear path for both. If your intake gets clogged, your engine will die, and you won't be able to start your car again. If your exhaust gets clogged, you can die from carbon monoxide poisoning. If you have a CB radio, don't stop transmitting your location and asking for help. You're much more likely to find someone via radio than via phone, especially if you don't have phone service. Finally, stay with your vehicle. A car is a lot easier to spot in the snow than a person. While you're not running the engine, run your hazards if you hear activity nearby. Blinking lights on a car-sized object will draw attention to you. So will honking the horn if you hear people nearby. Not to mention your car is your lifeline for heat, shelter, and information via the radio. The only reason you should leave your car if you're stuck during a snowstorm is if there's an immediate threat to your life. Story 4. Mixing different cleaning products, as in products for bathrooms, floors, and stuff. Some of these contain very aggressive soot, and some of it does indeed react with each other on a chemical basis. Especially bleach is a no-no for mixing. Chlorine gas is easier to accidentally create than you probably think, and if you don't realize what you've just done, you could be dead a lot quicker than you wanted to be. A clean bathroom won't help you then. Answer. Yep. Many decades ago, my mom almost eliminated herself cleaning. She'd mixed ammonia and bleach because she used 2 different cleaning products. All the metal in the bathroom turned green from the gas. Thankfully, my dad was home. She has, somehow, still managed to come close to mixing them more than once since then. She still uses bleach to clean. I cannot stand the smell of bleach. Makes me feel sick, and I refuse to use it for any cleaning. Story 5. Cone snails. So many people see a pretty seashell, pick it up, feel a tiny pinch that they don't think much of, and then die. There is no antidote, and the best anyone can do is make sure you're out of the water. It causes paralysis, so a lot of people die by drowning, and keep you breathing long enough for your body to metabolize it as best as it can. It's going to be hideously painful the entire time, though, if you make it through, and you're probably going to end up with a lot of pain for a very long time and never quite be the same after. Answer: I once went to Australia to visit some friends that had emigrated there. One day, we went to the beach to chill out, fish, and have lunch. The tide went out, and the exposed beach was covered in loads of little snails. Without thinking about it, I reached out to pick one up, and my friend's dad bellowed at me to stop. He explained that they were cone snails. They won't bother you if you run around, even step on them. I can't remember if we had shoes on or not, but whatever we do not try and pick them up. So yeah, that could have been it for me. Story 6. Listen to me good. If you see someone go into a confined, poorly ventilated space and they don't come out, do not go in after them. If there's some sort of toxic chemical buildup, it'll knock you out long before you get a chance to help the other person. I've heard multiple stories where 4 or 5 people died because they kept following each other into septic pits and whatnot. Toxic gas buildup can get you very, very quickly. Answer: there's a training video they like to use of a crew in NYC who were working in some old tunnels. The boss goes down to scope the workout. A while later, his son comes looking for him, assumes he's down in the pipes, but he gets no reply when he shouts for him. Another workmate comes along and goes down. As he disappears from sight, he goes quiet. Another worker comes over and goes down. He freaks out when he sees the worker passed out not far from the ladder, and then goes quiet pretty fast as well. Pipe was filled with gas. They only had a few seconds to get out before they passed out. Story 7. I got a bacteria in my foot about 3 months ago, which went into my bloodstream and got into my heart. I died in the OR and had to be revived before a 10-hour surgery to replace and repair 3 heart valves and a large hole in my heart. 3 weeks in ICU, 2 weeks in cardio ward after that. Don't let little infections become big infections. I had no idea this was happening in my body, but on the 3rd day of not getting out of bed because I was so tired, we called 911. Answer: this happened to my dad several years ago. Was barely responding and went septic suddenly. Doctors didn't know where the infection was, but after many tests over a couple days, discovered a staph infection was quickly deteriorating a valve in his heart. He had open heart surgery the next day after discovering this, and the surgeon was able to repair the valve. He spent 2 months in the hospital recovering. He lost 50 pounds due to being laid up so long. He's now doing amazing, and the surgeon confirmed his heart was in great shape otherwise. They never figured out how he contracted it. A lot of people don't know that infections can cause delirium. I think there's an actual term for it. My dad doesn't remember 3 weeks of his life during that time. He was restrained to the bed because he kept trying to escape. He was so confused and in so much pain. I'll never forget my little brother telling me Dad looked him in the eyes one night and asked, "Am I in a nightmare?" He was like a scared little kid. My brother and I were in our early 20s trying to take care of our dad and be the rock for our mom. We never said it out loud, but we all thought he wasn't going to make it for a couple days. I'm glad you're here to share the story. Story 8. Diving headfirst. It can eliminate immediately if you misjudge the water depth or cause permanent full-body paralysis. Answer: my friend had this happen and is now seriously disabled to the point she has difficulty speaking and walking. Side note is that she's constantly being hit on and creeped on by guys that think she's also mentally disabled. It's crazy just how often she'll wait outside a shop and I come out and some weird guy is bothering her. She dived into a pool on holiday and her life was never the same. Story 9. Sleeping with your phone connecting to a charger under your pillow. Had a friend get sent to the ER as their phone overheated and the battery exploded right under their face. It was bad as they had shrapnel of the battery enter into the left side of the brain that could have severed veins in the brain. Had to go into emergency room to remove the shrapnel in the brain, along with some in their ear and neck. Doctors told them one piece was less than a quarter from the jugular as well, so they were literally close to passing. Best practice is to place your phone and charger away from you, preferably on a nightstand or table, and not in your bed. Answer: Phone Tech here. Most flagship phones are designed to stop charging and shut off when they become overheated. This prevents battery damage. Most, if not all cases where phones exploded were due to 1. Bad or third-party batteries. 2. Faulty chargers. 3. Faulty phone. Lots and lots of people sleep with their phones under their pillow or sheets and nothing happens. Phones get tested in scenarios like this during development, so trust me, manufacturers know this is very common and have taken steps to reduce accidents. Now this should be avoided. There is no reason to have your phone that close to you. Story 10. While not immediately, Most people don't know that infection from a toothache could possibly eliminate you if allowed to spread unchecked. Answer: this happened to me. I had a bad cavity and got it filled. Then over the next couple of months, I developed osteomyelitis in my jawbone. Ate through the whole bone. The ER doctors kept saying I had TMJ. Finally, they caught it. I don't think TMJ makes it look like a ping pong ball is in your cheek. That shoot was fudge painful. Couldn't even talk. Story 11. The reason they don't want you to eat before anesthesia is not so much the danger of inhaling choking on food that comes back up. It's the danger of stomach acid in the lungs. Even small amounts can cause catastrophic, irreparable damage to the lungs. Story 12. Rotating machinery will grab any loose article of clothing and pull you in and turn you into a smoothie. Story 13. Also, farm animals, horses, cows, things that look harmless and cuddly, but once they decide you're not allowed in their space, can turn deadly in a heartbeat. Their massive body weight alone is a pretty decent defense mechanism. Cows do like to trample things, alongside the flexibility of a horse's legs, for example. There's a lot of dumb ways to die from cute farm animals. Answer: I had a friend who had a pet cow. The first time she introduced me, we jumped over the fence, and as soon as her cow saw her, she started running so fast. I told her that it wasn't going to stop and we needed to run. I ran. She stayed there, and this cow came to a skidding stop just in time. In that moment, I knew a cow could easily eliminate. They were best friends, but that was terrifying. Story 14. Mixing benzodiazepines like Xanax with adult beverage. Since they're both sedatives, it can actually cause you to stop breathing in a relatively short time. Story 15. It won't eliminate you immediately, but one of my greatest fears is getting prions. You're just fudge, no cure, no hope. Slowly, your brain will be pulled apart as you lose yourself until you die. Always. Edit. The comments have told me two things. The first is that maybe prions are more common and well-known than I thought. The second is they are even more terrifying than I thought. Answer. A close family friend died of this last year, and within a span of 6 months, he lost all memory and function and turned into a dislike person because he was scared, confused, and literally wouldn't recognize even his wife and kids. He lost the ability to walk and talk, and there was nothing anyone could do but watch it happen. He was an engineer before that, really smart guy. By the time they realized he had something going on and went to the doctor, 30 of his brain was gone, and the doctor was floored that he was still walking. The CDC wanted his body sent to them after to make sure it was disposed of properly and wouldn't contaminate anything and pass it on. But none of the airlines would fly him out, and no crematories in the state would take him. They weren't allowed to just bury him. Finally, a veterinary crematory agreed to take him, and they closed down operations for the day to clean up and be as respectful as they could. Prions are literally a nightmare. Passing isn't instant, but there's no coming back from it, and the decline is quick and awful. Story 16. Lack of situational awareness. When things start to go sideways, slow down and think. Don't turn one victim into two or more. Take your time and act with purpose and forethought. There will be more than enough panic without you adding to it. Answer. Right? Like, people make fun of me for being a worrier and talking about safety stuff all the time, but then turn around and thank me for knowing what to do in most situations. Like meanie, those things are related. I'm even willing to take a lot of risks others won't, because I have already thought about every possible scenario and played it out, so I know what to do if it goes sideways. Thanks, anxiety. It makes me weirdly calm. Story 17. Poppers, alkyl nitrates. Obviously, tons of people do them with no harm, but there is a condition called sudden sniffing passing syndrome, which occurs when inhalants increase one's heart rate quickly and severely enough that it immediately impacts the cardiovascular system, resulting in heart failure and passing. Sudden sniffing syndrome can occur the first time you use inhalants. In other words, not worth it. Story 18. The ocean. A friend of a friend died in 2 feet of surf when he turned his back on the waves, and a bigger one came out, flipped him, and slammed his head into the packed sand. Never, ever turn your back to the ocean. Answer. Worked with a park ranger who was present when a BLM botanist was swept into sea by a rogue wave in NorCal. They were hiking along the beach, cresting around a large bedrock outcrop. She chose to hike the lower path of the two available. Ranger takes the longer route a little up, and she turns to say something like, "See, it's not so bad." And the ranger watched her get swept away. Knocked out instantly by the wave and could not be saved in time, she was dragged out. Never turn your back on the ocean. Story 19. Antifreeze. Everyone knows not to consume it, but if you get a good amount of it on your skin and don't wash it off immediately, it can eliminate your jerk. A friend of mine lost his son 2 years ago. He was repairing a truck and the radiator hose bust. He got antifreeze all over himself. Unfortunately, the place he was working on the truck didn't have any facilities to wash up, so he had to just wipe off all he could and finish up. 12 hours later, he was getting sick, and 48 hours later, he was dead. He was 42 and very healthy. His family is absolutely devastated. Y'all be careful. Story 20. It doesn't immediately eliminate you, but if you don't catch it immediately, your doom is sealed for a miserable, deadly week. Rabies. If you don't get the vaccine within 24 hours of contracting it, and the symptoms don't appear for 24 hours, it has a 100 mortality rate, and it's a miserable, hallucinatory passing. Story 21. A cracked toilet falling under the weight of your body as you sit. Edited to add NSFW info. Toilet-related deaths. Medical journal with images. Story 22. Aneurysms. Often, people don't know they've got one. They often have no signs or symptoms, and yet if they rupture, you can be dead in minutes. Answer. This is one of those fears I have to just put in a box in the back of my mind or else it'd go crazy. I try to take the general health precautions as much as anyone can, but my maternal grandmother dropped dead in her 40s from a brain aneurysm, and it worries me. But there's just not much to do. Insurance doesn't like to cover preventative imaging, especially for a young person. Maybe I'll push more when I start approaching 40. I get migraines just like my mother does, and she's tested clear of visible aneurysms, thankfully. But maybe we'll use them to my advantage to get looked at eventually. Story 23. High humidity and high heat, also known as the wet bulb effect. It stops the body's natural ability to cool itself, and at the upper limits of extremes can eliminate within hours to even minutes. The Cave of Crystals in Nica, Chihuahua, Mexico, is one such place where these extremes exist. The environment is around 58°C, 136°F, with humidity of around 90 to 99. Without specialized cooling equipment and suits, a person would die within a few minutes because they'd essentially drown in their own lungs. Story 24. I think people know you can get hurt, but a simple fall can eliminate you if your head hits something hard, even if you don't fall from very high up. Story 25. Helium balloons. Do not play. Displace your oxygen in your lungs with another gas, and you will get hypoxia and forget to breathe because you won't feel starved of air because your lungs will be full. Loss of consciousness in less than 10 seconds. Brain damage and passing to follow. Peaceful way to go, though. Story 26. Pulmonary embolism. GF came to visit after work and said she wasn't feeling well. I made some soup, gave her cold medicine, watched her favorite show with her, and sent her home to rest. Got a call from one of our friends the next morning saying she had died in the night. My mother, an RN, told me they're very difficult to spot and can eliminate very quickly. But years later, I'm still occasionally frustrated with myself. She was dying and I made her soup. Anyway, hug the things you love. Story 27. Falling asleep at the wheel. I fell asleep for 2 seconds one time. A friend of mine lost 2 friends from this. Driving tired is equally as dangerous as driving tipsy. Story 28. Your chance of encountering this in your day-to-day life is essentially 0. But if you briefly touch dimethylmercury, it's a passing sentence. There's a case where a scientist was handling this substance, and a few drops of it got on her gloved hand. 10 months later, she was dead. Well, scary stuff. Story 29. Entering a closed-off, confined space that has trapped moisture. It can breed bacteria and drop oxygen levels to where one attempt at breath causes you to collapse almost immediately and then pass out and die from a lack of oxygen. Story 30. Falling, whatever way, and hitting your head on a hard floor. People would be surprised how fragile the human head is. Answer. It always trips me out. I have a family friend who was ran over by a semi, split his liver, bones sticking out, and sat on a logging road for 3-some-odd hours in his 50s. Saw him at the store the other day. Chatted. He's great. My mom had a friend in her 20s whose boyfriend pushed her. She fell and hit the back of her head on a rock, and she was gone pretty much immediately. Just like that. Young, healthy, kaput. The human body can be so durable, but so fragile. Story 31. Untreated spider or snake bite. Pushing through trying to wait it out can drop you if you have a sudden blood pressure drop, swelling of the airways, or cardiac arrest. Answer. This happened to me. Had what I believe to be a blemish or zit near the top of my butt. As I couldn't see it, I went to sleep, thinking it would just go away. Woke up to gray lips, covered in cold sweat, and a really low heart rate. ER said I had about 2 hours before it became critical. I still have a huge scar, but glad it was caught in time. It ended up being a brown recluse bite. Story 32. Eating too many Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts contain selenium, and eating too many at one time can cause something called selenosis, selenium toxicity. You should eat no more than 5 or 6 Brazil nuts a day. Story 33. A blood clot. People don't realize how vital it is to move around, stretch every few hours. Sitting or standing in the same position all day allows blood water to pool in areas like your lower legs. You don't have to be old or overweight. Anyone can get a blood clot. Stay hydrated. Walk, stretch every few hours. Just improving your daily movement by 5-10 minutes a day does a world of difference for your body, especially your heart. It also lowers your BP, reduces any swelling you may have. My high school friend died from a blood clot to her lungs. She couldn't breathe, passed out, died. It's nightmare fuel in my opinion. R.I.P. Janet. Story 34. Low blood sugar can happen to type 1 a lot, but can also happen to type 2 after taking insulin. Many people don't realize that it is just as dangerous as having a high blood sugar. My grandfather got hospitalized because his blood sugar dropped to 16. Mixing cocaine with adult beverage, a very common substances combination, yet increases your chance of a heart attack by 40 times. Getting refed with electrolytes after being long deprived off of it for long enough. Refeeding syndrome. Mixing rubbing adult beverage with bleach. Attacking a boar. Their blows, illegal U-turns, great cause for car accidents. Most fatal car accidents in Saudi Arabia resulted because of illegal U-turns. Story 35. Using metal fork to grab bread in toaster. I didn't know this one. A friend horrified to see me do it told me. Answer. It's only deadly if it's not finished yet and is still toasting the bread, and you touch the heating wires inside with the fork, not just the cage holding the bread centered. And at the same time, you don't touch the cage with the same fork because the cage is earthed and will close the circuit and trip the breaker. And your house is not equipped with RCD GFCI protection. After all that, there is a chance that it may hurt you, but most likely you'll just shit your pants. Only if you're really unlucky, there may be enough current passing through your heart to eliminate you. But really, just wait for the toaster to turn off, or push the cancel button before sticking the fork in and you'll be all right. Story 36. Commotio cordis. A single impact to the chest at just the right moment can trigger fatal arrhythmia almost instantly. Also, poorly ventilated rooms with a gas leak can silently eliminate while you sleep, like what happened to a family friend's son and his girlfriend. It's a silent killer that can go unnoticed until it's too late. Story 37. Nitrogen gas. Even though it's 78 of breathable air, entering a chamber of 100 nitrogen gas will eliminate you without a struggle. Story 38. Mercury. They're used in old thermometers. Since I do wear a Stetson, fur felt cowboy hats comes to mind. Mercury was also used to stiffen the hat and give its shape. Most vintage cowboy hats that are still around has a lot of mercury on them, especially the ones that came out during the Victorian era. The mercury made people mad, hence where Mad Hatter got its name. Thankfully, as time progressed, the use of hairspray and shellac was used to help stiffen the hat and give its shape. Story 39. Blue-ringed octopus. They are one of the most venomous animals alive, and they can eliminate you within 15 minutes. Story 40. Motor vehicle wrecks. It never ceases to amaze me to hear how people obsess over arcane things they're afraid will eliminate them, yet drive everywhere with hardly a thought. Story 41. Come to think of it, I recall reading about a family that died because of potatoes outgassing in their root cellar. Turned the air toxic. One person went down, never came back up. Then the whole family went down one after another, except for the youngest child who went for help. Story 42. Toxic mushrooms. A lot of wild mushrooms look edible, but a single bite of the wrong species, like passing cap or destroying angel, can shut down your liver and kidneys within days. By the time symptoms show up, the damage is often irreversible. Unless you're an expert mycologist, don't eat anything you forage. Cold river water inhalation, drowning. Even strong swimmers underestimate how fast cold water can trigger an involuntary gasp reflex. One unexpected mouthful of water in a current or after a slip can send water straight into your lungs and cause instant panic. leading to drowning within seconds. Always wear a life jacket and treat open water with respect, especially rivers with strong currents. Story 43. Vacuum decay. Look up the Big Slurp cosmology. It's a way our local universe could end without you ever seeing it coming. Story 44. I never knew was a thing till a couple years ago, adult beverage withdrawal. From the only case I know of it happening, it was kind of out of the blue. Story 45. I heard a story once about a man eliminate when his garage door spring broke. Now I look at those springs with apprehension anytime I'm around them. Found this on a site just to verify it's real. Garage door spring accidents. Among the most prevalent and hazardous garage door injuries are those involving springs. Garage door springs are under immense tension, and any attempt at DIY maintenance or repair can lead to serious harm. These high-tension garage door torsion springs, just like extension springs, can snap suddenly, causing severe injuries to anyone nearby. Story 46. Wild animals. People need to stop thinking the world is a petting zoo. Like, dude, that's a fudge moose. Story 47. Diabetic ketoacidosis leading to coma and eventually passing. Or low blood sugars leading to unconsciousness and ultimately passing. Source: nearly died from DKA. Diabetes is a horrible, all-consuming condition. Story 48. Off the top of my head, mixing certain medications in grapefruit juice, unsafe use of a ladder, not properly securing your car when you're working on it, improper maintenance on firearms. Story 49. I went into a room that had a CO2 fire suppression system that had discharged and was a little too early. I had vision fading and tingles for some time. Story 50. Cars. I mean, most people know it on some level, but everybody acts as though they're safe. Whether you're in one or on the sidewalk near them, interacting with cars is by far the most dangerous thing the average person does on a daily basis. Story 51. Tire that comes loose on the freeway. I knew a man whose wife was eliminated by a tire that bounced through the front windshield. When I met him, he was still in grief and shock, and the passing seemed so meaningless to him. Story 52. I'm surprised I haven't seen this in the thread, but slipping in the shower, you slip, hit the back of your head with the toilet sink floor, and you're paralyzed. Or eliminate, also underestimating large and especially fast bodies of water like rivers. One of my mom's friends went to a river even though her mother said it was dangerous due to the currents. She went into the water, got pulled, and became exhausted trying to fight the water and drowned. Story 53. Fevers. Usually most people think 101, 102 can come down with acetaminophen, cool compress, and sleep. Had the flu one year, had a fever, went from the sweats to chills to sweats, took a Tylenol, laid down, woke up an hour or two later, sweating buckets, skin was on fire, took my temp, 105.8, somehow drove to the ER. Doctor was in disbelief how I made it there, said my organs were literally cooking. Was insane how quick it spiked, and how bad I didn't feel. I was sick, but not drop dead sick. I almost went back to sleep. Glad I didn't. Story 54. Electricity. It's powerful, quick, and underrated by many. Just because the wire is small means nothing about the strength and power of amps and volts. Story 55. Living on Mars' surface. Apparently, the surface radiation makes you go permanently senile in a short amount of time. So I have no idea how humans are going to colonize that place. Story 56. 1 drop of gasoline in one of your lungs. Do not siphon gasoline with a tube without signing a will. Story 57. Blanks. So many people think there's no bullet, it's just a blank. When I teach gun safety, I will fire a blank at a piece of sheet steel left over from the barn as a demonstration to show that guns are not toys. The gases and wadding from a .38 blank will tear through a metal coffee can without a problem. Several actors have been eliminated playing around with blanks. Story 58. Being in between an MRI machine and something large and ferrous. Or going in an MRI with a ferrous brain aneurysm clip. I was an MRI safety officer for decades and used to argue that our scanners could eliminate people quicker than anything else in the hospital, to everyone who thought it was okay to just bypass our safety guidelines. Story 59. Hitting your head. RTBI can explain how easily a knock to the head can cause a brain bleed, which will eliminate you in an hour or so. Story 60. Bad teeth. It takes a long time, but if it happens, you can die suddenly. That's why it's better not to gamble and get then pulled. Story 61. Getting shot in the leg. I always laugh when I see people ask, why can't they just shoot them in the leg instead of eliminate them. There's huge arteries in your legs, and getting shot in one means passing within a few minutes. Story 62. Rip currents at the beach. People panic and try to swim straight back to shore instead of swimming parallel. Total passing trap. Story 63. Sledding. I broke my back hitting a tree sledding on a tube sled when I was a teen. Tubes are so fast and you can't steer them. Get your kids sleds they can steer and do not sled near trees. An injury like that will either eliminate you or completely change your quality of life. For the rest of your life, it's not worth it. Story 64. 130 heat. Great for eliminate bed bugs. Deadly for people too after not too long. You're also more likely to get injured doing heavy lifting in the heat. Story 65. Head on. Highway collision. Many of us are passing within a few feet of hundreds of cars going a relative 120 miles per hour every day. All it takes is 1 second of not paying attention. Story 66. Anhydrous ammonia. It is used as an agricultural fertilizer, but it can also be an ingredient in meth. Every once in a while, some cooker gets cooked trying to siphon out some from the trailer tanks. It is extremely hydrophilic, so you die by inhaling and it desiccates your lung tissue in a few seconds. Story 67. Stacked objects falling on you. It's pretty obvious that extremely heavy things can eliminate you, but a pile of stuff doesn't have to be particularly heavy to crush or suffocate you if you aren't able to escape. Story 68. Garage door springs. Do not stand near the threshold opening when the door is in motion, or ever, just to be safe. Story 69. Cold shock. Any kayakers, canoers, SUP, please look at coldwatersafety.org. Falling into 60-degree or colder water without a wet or dry suit can sometimes trigger an irrepressible gasp reflex. If your head is underwater, you'll drown. If not, you may uncontrollably hyperventilate and will quickly become too weak to swim, even a few feet, or hold on to your boat. The colder the water, the stronger the cold shock reflex. It is very worrying to see SUP paddlers in skimpy clothes in ice-cold water. Story 70. Passengers, feet on the dashboard while driving at high speeds. Seen it turn people into pretzels more times than I'd like to think about. Seeing people on the freeway asleep like that gives me so much anxiety. Story 71. I would say fentanyl. The average person knows it's deadly in a vague way, but I don't think they realize how lethal it is. Story 72. Eating a cherry pit, apple seed, or apricot kernel in large enough amounts. They contain cyanide compounds. Most people don't know. Story 73. Ethanol flames. Burn blue on the edge of the visible spectrum or be invisible entirely. Invisible fire. Story 74. Springs under pressure. The ones on garage doors are a big one that a lot of people don't seem to realize how deadly they can be. Story 75. I was alone with my children, and one night I really didn't feel well. I went to check on the little ones, and they weren't really waking up. I called the fire brigade. Fortunately, the next day I called the repairman. Defective boiler and no detector. Story 76. Carbon monoxide from faulty heaters. Completely odorless, and you just fall asleep and never wake up. Scary, isn't it? Story 77. Tylenol overdose. People think it's just Tylenol, but taking too much destroys your liver and you're dead in days. No antidote after a certain point. Story 78. Splinters. Scraping your knee on rocks, etc. Tetanus is a silent killer and isn't just found on rust. It's actually a bacteria that's found anywhere dirt, dust, and animal shoot is found. They thrive in low oxygen, which is why you're most likely to get it from rust, since a dusty, empty building isn't exactly the epitome of high oxygen environment. But it can be gotten from something as simple as a splinter from a log. Story 79. The silent killer. High blood pressure. Never checked. Little exercise. Sofa life. Home to car. Car to workplace. A sitting down job. Job to home via car. A little jog at weekend. You get the picture. If it is you, take action now. Climb all or some stairs at work. Walk lunchtimes. Exercise at home. Story 80. Stop ignoring that thing. You know exactly what I mean. The one that's been bothering you for a while. Just get it checked out. Do not ignore the thing. Story 81. Depending on what kind of area you live in, pissing someone off on the road. Guns can be pointed, and people can follow you if they're determined enough. Story 82. I recently learned about how dangerous a crack in your toilet can really be. That will change the way you poop forever. Story 83. Taking Tylenol while drinking adult beverage. It will destroy your liver And while you might live long enough to get a new one, it will 100 eliminate you early. Story 84. Degloving after being caught in a radiation blast. Radiation in general, but if you don't die instantly, it's one of the worst ways to go in my opinion. Rotting and decaying in a bed unable to move sounds so horrific. Story 85. Allergies. Some. Unless you go around wearing a sign or introducing yourself by your allergies, most people won't know. Story 86. That throughout the South there is a brain-eating amoeba, Naegleria fowleri, quickly gaining ground and inhabiting regions that it didn't used to and spreading with global warming. It can infest any body of water, but especially still water like ponds, lakes, etc. It mainly occurs in areas where there is little to no water movement. We have had 2 cases in Oklahoma in the last 2 years. This used to be primarily a South Florida, Central America kind of thing. One of the reasons it's so deadly with a near 95 fatality rate is it presents very similarly to the flu. This causes misdiagnosis and delays in treatment, which result in fatalities. Most health professionals now say, if you or someone you love are rushed to the ER for an illness that looks like the flu on steroids, you need to tell them right away if they had been swimming in a freshwater pond, lake, or slow-moving river or creek. The earlier they know to test for it, the better. A couple of children have been saved by this in Florida. Story 87. Not labeling your stuff. So how can one tell at a glance that the white powder on your desk is salt, sugar, or flour? That's cool part. You don't. Now, switch out these 3 with something like sodium hydroxide or potassium permanganate. That clear liquid could be water, sure. It could also be sulfuric acid or hydrochloric acid. Another one is darkness. A fall can do more damage to you than you think, especially if it's in an unfamiliar location like a campsite. Story 88. Being injected with the wrong type of blood during a blood transplant. Unless you're a universal receiver, if you're injected with the wrong blood type, it'll cause hemolysis. This can lead to shock, kidney failure, circulatory collapse, and passing, of course. It's funny how severe just a simple little mess-up from a doctor can be. Story 89. Electricity. Seriously, unless you've got experience working with it, do not go and start poking around with it and try fixing electrical problems yourself at home. Call a professional. Story 90. It's not instant, and we don't really use it anymore but radium. The radium girls are my Roman Empire, and I think about the radium craze often. Story 91. Rice and pasta. If you forgot you mix up the takeout containers from last night with the same food from a few days ago, it can actually eliminate you. Story 92. Passing a truck on the right, at least in places where the driver's side is on the left. Really, trucks in general. Even something like a sideswipe collision at freeway speeds is likely to end up pulling your car under the wheels, or you're going to end up crushed between the truck and the concrete barrier. None of the improved safety features of modern cars will do anything for you when it's 80,000 to 105,000 pounds moving at 65 miles per hour. But especially be careful of the right side. There really are huge blind spots there. Every time you pass a truck on the right, there is a real possibility that it might merge suddenly and have no idea you are there. Story 93. Carbon monoxide poisoning. It's silent, colorless, and odorless, so most people have no clue it's happening until it's too late. Definitely get a CO detector if you don't already have one. Story 94. Paracetamol in extreme doses. Like double the highest daily amount will ruin your liver. Unless they can flush it out of your stomach, that's basically it. Please, someone explain this in more scientific details. I heard it on the first aid course, so I assumed it's true. Story 95. Mushrooms. If you aren't an expert or know someone who can show you what ones are safe, you're dead. Mushrooms don't fudge around. Story 96. Parents used to own a party store and would always warn customers not to inhale helium from helium tanks. Supposedly, inhaling helium too fast can instantly eliminate you. Story 97. Falling in the shower. Knew someone who died like that, slipped and broke their neck in just a moment. Yet we use the shower all the time. Freak accident, but entirely possible anytime. Story 98. Chance. He a male body part. Then there's Murphy. He's a satchel of Richards. I work on a major construction site. I see people's close calls every day. They don't even notice. Ignorance is bliss. Story 99. Drinking lots of water in one go. There is such a thing as water poisoning, but it's incredibly rare. Story 100. You know the springs on your garage door? Don't touch them. If they snap, they can maim or eliminate you before you even realize they're broken. Story 101. Eating leftover pasta. That stuff is a perfect breeding ground for Bacillus cereus. That stuff normally just gives you the pukes in the chute, but it can also cause liver failure in passing. Story 102. A car. You would think this would be obvious, but the hundreds of people that have just walked right in front of our car as we made our way around the city this month alone would beg to differ. Story 103. I was going to chime in with a friendly reminder about not fudge around with garage door springs until I started reading all these ghastly misadventures and disfiguring dangers. Story 104. Dissecting aortic aneurysms. If you aren't in an operating room when it happens, the mortality rate is like 70. It's one of my biggest fears. Story 105. Sucking helium from a balloon. Very quick, very stupid. Have I done it? Yes. After seeing some kid on the internet nearly die from it, never again. Story 106. CO2. I work with very large containers of dry ice. We've had someone almost die accidentally by taking in a big old breath of pure CO2 and passing out with their head in the bin. If someone didn't see it happen, he was gone. Story 107. Anything that is hiding a shit ton of potential energy. Things like compressed springs in car struts, dock lines for large ships, overfilled truck tires, etc. All can eliminate before the brain can process anything happen. I've seen too many live leak videos of dockhands being grievously injured or eliminate when a ship's line snaps or a bollard comes loose, suddenly relieved of literal tons of force. Story 108. I used to caretake an apartment block. Boiler room smelled strong, like sulfur, so I called the power company. When I was letting the guy in, I said I didn't turn on the lights because the building is old, and I was afraid it might make a spark, thinking I was probably being overly paranoid, and he said that was smart. Most people wouldn't think of that. Story 109. Not really in the same way other people are talking about, but the amount of botulinum toxin, Botox, needed to eliminate you is really low, like a few millionths of a gram. They use billionths of a gram, nanograms, when they give you Botox. You could eliminate the whole world with a few pounds of it. People know botulinum toxin is lethal, but I don't think they realize how little is needed and how little of it is used in Botox. Story 110. Adult beverage increases your chance of getting cancer immensely. Your chances of getting are already insane high, especially for women. So adult beverage all but guarantees that you will get cancer. Story 111. Someone mentioned power lines, but they missed an important point. You don't have to actually touch the high voltage lines for it to eliminate you. If you get close enough, and that could be as far as a meter on very high voltage lines, the electricity will arc, bridge the air gap, and electrocute you. Stay very far away. Story 112. Dissolving as little as one cigarette in a glass of water and then drinking it can eliminate you. I'm sure it would taste abhorrently bad, but just don't do it. Cigarettes in general aren't really that healthy to begin with. Story 113. MRSA, methicillin-resistant Streptococcus aureus. You have a zit or a scab or any small teeny tiny open wound. You don't wash your hands after using the bathroom or blowing your nose. You touch the area with the wound. Wound becomes a small zit, no issue. You pop it, thinking nothing of it. Opens the wound again, releasing the bacteria trapped inside and exposing it to more air, moisture, and bacteria, allowing propagation of bacteria. Zit gets bigger and deeper, but has no head. You think, oh, I'll pop it again when it's ready. It's just a stubborn zit. Next day you have a temp of 103 and the bump hurts more. Most people actually ignore this and just take meds. Now sure, most of us will be fine. But then there's those who just so happen to allow staph strep bacteria in, and we now have MRSA and don't know it. Your body walls off the infection, creating an abscess. Your white blood cells multiply to fight it and can't. Meds don't work. You feel worse. You finally screw it and go to urgent care. They use a needle to pop it and collect the pus to sample it. You test positive for MRSA and are now on some of the most powerful antibiotics known to man. And you learn that had you contracted it and had anything else wrong with you, you likely would have died. If the infection reaches the blood, you're now septic and sitting in an ER getting 5 to 10 bags of liquid antibiotics pumped into you, while you hope it's the CAMRSA and not the HA, community associated instead of healthcare associated. 6 weeks later, the bump is finally gone. Unless you ignored it, then you're just dead, and it took a day and a half. Story 114. Drinking too much water too fast can dilute your blood sodium and make your brain swell. It's eliminate marathon runners, hazing victims, and even soldiers within hours. Story 115. Disturbing still water. Toxic gases can be trapped underwater, especially in places like old mines. And if you disturb the water, it can release these gases. Story 116. Random space junk landing on your head, or anything from space really, although there was a woman in America who was struck by a meteorite and survived. She is the only documented human to do so. Story 117. The fumes from rotten potatoes. In 2013, a man, his 18-year-old son, his wife and his mother-in-law were all found dead in a basement after they all went down, one after the other, and were eliminated by toxic gas released by rotting potatoes. They were all found by his 8-year-old daughter after the mother-in-law left the door open, allowing the gas to disperse before the daughter went in. Otherwise, she would have died as well. Story 118. Compressed air. I hadn't ever heard about how dangerous it can be, and I was fooling around with it at work. A workmate came over and said that if air gets into your bloodstream, it can eliminate you in minutes. I thought it wasn't particularly high pressure, but apparently it doesn't need to be. Maybe most people do know about it, but I didn't. Needless to say, I'm very careful with it now. Story 119. Going from being dead sober to binging on your addictions again. Many will be warned, but many will also not listen. Story 120. Bad teeth can definitely eliminate you. If you get an infection and it spreads into your bloodstream, you could die. It's something that is easy to prevent, but most people don't have dental insurance or have poor quality dental insurance. Story 121. I have a couple overdose of narcotics, mineral, codeine, morphine, and not a narcotic, just a mineral, potassium. Any of those three can stop your heart with too much. Story 122. Wow, top 2 responses are smoke and carbon monoxide. Makes me feel better about installing 2 smoke CO alarms in my house today. Smiley. Story 123. Carbon monoxide poisoning is terrifyingly quick and silent. You don't even realize you're breathing it in until it's too late. Super important to have detectors in your home. Story 124. Tragic end. Tragic end due to heavy abuse. Everyone know about tragic ends existent, but they don't give it the proper acknowledgement to understand it. They deny facts about it, dismiss it, and they say things like, it's not never your fault. They made the decision. Tragic end is selfish, etc. Tragic end's true cause is usually by society's failures and the way people treat others. I'm not talking about when a narcissist threatens tragic end to get intimacy or something, which happened to me. I'm talking about legitimate cases. People do horrible things like intimacy, verbally, physically, emotionally abuse people, and others ignore that and do nothing to help. They'll even deliberately avoid helping out of fear or whatever, or they dismiss it and attack the victims. This is what causes tragic end. It can immediately eliminate people, like children who commit tragic end because they're bullied at school. Or it can even take years of painful suffering before they finally do it, possibly even hurting other people doing when they snap. This is why empathy is valuable and should not be forsaken nor relinquished. Story 125. Getting in the middle of the night to pee. You're groggy and the lights are dim or off. A friend of mine got up one night and tripped, then fell and hit his head on a dresser. It knocked him out and he wound up having a stroke. He's in a wheelchair now, and thankfully not in the ground, because his brother found him and called 911. Story 126. Tripping. Literally, you can get injuries from just falling at nearly any height. Broken bones, scrape wounds, chipped or lost teeth, and especially brain injuries. A concussion can lead to a stroke, and strokes are the calmest killers you can see. Bonus answer would be the brain itself. If one of those little bits of lightning in your skull misfires in a way it's not supposed to, you can just plop dead on the ground from a seizure. Take a moment to thank your neurons for working properly. Story 127. Asbestos. A single good whiff of powdered asbestos is a passing sentence, but you are likely to spend a few decades on passing row with your lungs slowly getting turned into scar tissue by a 1,000 cuts. Story 128. Sounds silly and obvious, but car crashes. People going 80 on HW and CA swerve, and when they go past me sometimes, they are just like on their phones. Cars can be weapons, homies. Story 129. Here's a weird one. Piano wires. Never destroy an old piano, burning or breaking them, because a wire is under intense pressure and can slice you in half. Story 130. Gamma ray bursts. The most violent and powerful explosions, that we know about at this time. In the universe, they occur when some of the most violent explosive events in space take place, including after the birth of black holes and the collisions of two neutron stars, sending massive jets of gamma-ray radiation out of whatever caused it. They can last between a few milliseconds and a few minutes, but in that brief time, they are temporarily the brightest sources of electromagnetic radiation in the universe, hundreds of times brighter than an average supernova. If Earth were ever to get hit by one, would all die instantly, being vaporized. Story 131. I ride horses for 50 years. I know the horses, but they are skid dish bad and can throw you. Also, they love to run, and if you're on their back and just take off on a hack in the bush, very dangerous. My daughter always rode, and her friend who was 10 got thrown and died. Story 132. Dying. Literally eliminate you instantaneously. Sorry if this scares anyone, but it's unfortunately true. Story 133. An ascending aortic aneurysm. It's like a balloon inflating in your aorta, a silent killer. Once that balloon pops, you have an aortic dissection, and it's game over. Emergency surgery is your only hope, and even that has low survival rate. Story 134. Hydrogen fluoride and all the other products of combustion from lithium-ion batteries when they catch fire. Pretty much guaranteed cancer if you inhale it. Story 135. Berries. They look like maraschino cherries, but eat a handful with seeds and you're as good as dead. No antidote either. Very common bush that pretty much anyone who goes hiking a few times a year would have passed. Story 136. Hydrogen sulfide. Given off by decaying slurry, paralyses cells which process scent so you don't smell it. 1 or 2 breaths and lights out. Story 137. My dad was a physical therapist, and I heard plenty of stories about the types of injuries and deaths mentioned in this post. One thing drummed into me with each incident: you always swim in and check what's under the water first, even if you have been in that water area often. Weather, earthquakes, and man-made acts can move even large rocks and boulders. Be safe out there. Story 138. Not immediate, but I didn't know that yucca or cassava contains cyanide, and I love yucca fries and yucca in stews. But yes, you eat enough and you get cyanide poisoning. Story 139. Eating rice or pasta that's more than 3 days old. There is a deadly bacteria that grows, even if it is refrigerated and especially if it's not refrigerated. Just throw it out. Story 140. Tipsy snowboarding. A friend of mine's younger brother hit a tree, ruptured his aorta, and broke his neck back in several places. He became a quadriplegic and ended up passing away a few years later after his parents spent every last dime on his medical care, lost their house, and had to move back in with their family on the other side of the country. Tragic. Story 141. Okay, all of these are scary, but I'm concerned on how many people mentioned a cracked toilet. I don't plan on diving headfirst anywhere or going into the ocean or visit a cassowary, but I do use the toilet multiple times a day. Story 142. Taking a bunch of aspirin for pain after having bodily trauma. Aspirin thins the blood. If you still have internal bleeding, you've eliminated yourself. Story 143. Failing to heed the directions and warnings on your brand new pair of genuine Acme rocket-powered roller skates. Story 144. Allergic to sulfa. Soon as I took the pill, I was finally ill. Diarrhea and throwing up. Projectile. Throwing up within 2 minutes. Couldn't breathe. His throat swelled up. No air with getting in. And broke out in welts. Of an ambulance or one of my kids. Dead. Went to the emergency. They didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. We finally figured it out. It was allergic reaction to sulfa, so they gave me some kind of substances to counteract it, and I live. But it was pretty scary. If you ever take a new pill, make sure you're at home or with someone. It'll happen within the first minute or two. Allergic reactions are very, very dangerous. Story 145. I misinterpreted this post as what can eliminate me specifically that most people don't know about. No deadly allergies, but if you're ever going to chainsaw take down me as I'm trying to get in the house, I am 10,000 the guy in the slasher movie who cannot operate keys, doors, or locks when the stakes are high. I swear, it's like I'm jinxed. It's maddening, and I'm definitely going to die like an idiot one day because of it. Story 146. I once got hit by a pebble that was launched by a lawnmower when I was walking to a restaurant nearby. There was nothing else there other than a lawnmower 100 meters away, max. They were behind bushes, though. Maybe that also dampened the shot. This was a private garden, but heightened hilly, so it was perfect neck level. I don't know exactly how dangerous that was, but it hit me in my neck and it was a weird sting. There was plenty of places between that space that people could be walking, much closer to it. I don't think I was in much danger, but if it hits you in the wrong spot and closer, that could be at least life-changing. If it had hit my eye, that would not have been good. That's something remember feeling. Story 147. A slick road. There's an exit ramp by my house that's not paved properly, and so you don't get good traction on it, especially if it rains. People have accidents there constantly. I completely hydroplaned off it and had a near-passing experience. It all happened in less than 5 seconds. I was going exactly the recommended speed. I had new tires. It wasn't even raining that hard. I slipped off the road into some trees. The car was completely crushed by the impact. If I had been a foot closer to this one branch, it would have gone through the windshield and into my head. I don't remember how I got out of the car. I probably had a concussion and should have gone to the hospital, but I was way too hysterical. Always check your tires and take exits at recommend speeds, but know that sometimes that won't be enough. Every time you drive, you roll those dice. Story 148. I work in an auto factory. There are big robots that require all of the stored energy to be checked and rechecked before doing any repairs maintenance on them. We have had 3 maintenance guys die from not properly following the SOPs. One was crushed from the chest down, another was impaled through the head, and another was blunt force trauma. It's the classic, it won't happen to me. It's always in the back of my mind whenever I see someone in there working on them. Story 149. Large herbivores. They have evolved defenses that make even top predators second-guess themselves. Cross them, and they will mess you up. Story 150. Technically, probably just me. Most people don't know me and therefore don't know of me. At 5'10" and 120 pounds, I'm not intimidating at all. So even if you did know me, you won't be scared. Plus, I'm generally pretty nice and polite. Still doesn't mean I couldn't immediately eliminate someone.